After a 2-day inquest, it has been ruled by the coroner that 45-year-old mom of two Nicola Bulley's death was an accident. Let's dive into day 2 of the inquest and hear from her partner Paul, her sister, and others that were close to Nicola. Hi everyone, Empowering True Crime, Alex here. So happy that you're here. Welcome. If you're just catching this video, I did do a part 1, day 1. You can click the link here and that will give you a recap of what happened on day 1 of the 2-day inquest. We're going to be discussing in this video day 2. And as I mentioned in the other video, day 1 was more like the facts of the case. What happened before, during, and after her being found. And of course, the pathologist, what the cause of death they believe is. On the day 2, it's more of those closest to Nicola, her partner, her sister, her personal doctor, giving more of the background, kind of like the behind the scenes of what was happening leading up to her disappearance. And before we go into that, let's just take a moment of silence for Nicola and her family. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the Empowering Family, I'd appreciate if you join us. We'll be a voice for the voiceless, for those who aren't able to speak for themselves. All right, let's dive in to day 2. Okay, so the big news on day 2 is basically the coroner takes the information from the case, from the family, the background, and then makes a ruling on what is believed to be the cause of death. The determination, first day it was that she died of drowning. And then the second day is really like whether it was accident, suicide, or foul play. And so the coroner, spoiler, did rule that it was an accident, but we're going to go into more of what came out on day 2. Here's beautiful Nicola. Nicola Bulley's death was accidental, and she did not have any desire to take her own life, the coroner concluded. The 45-year-old drowned after falling into cold water, Dr. James Adderley, senior coroner. I don't know if it's Adderley or Adderley, so I apologize in advance. Senior coroner for Lancashire ruled. Experts told the hearing, entering cold water can cause a person to gasp and inhale water and drown in seconds. That is alarming, and I really hope that there is some training that goes in, maybe even with children, in case that happens. After the verdict, Ms. Bulley's family hit out at wildly inaccurate speculation on social media that followed her death. And to that point, they, in the UK, a lot of times they referred to the TikTok ghouls, the people who were going to the area, trying to find out what was happening, messing up the investigation, harassing people, and even one person was arrested. So it was just very interesting to see. And this channel, of course, I have questions. I'll bring those up whenever something just doesn't add up for me. But I would never over speculate on what's happening, especially if that includes foul play, because people's lives are at risk. But there's certainly always cause for questions. And I will definitely always bring up questions, again, when things don't add up. Ms. Bulley's family still received negative targeted messages on social media, as well as seeing wildly inaccurate speculation on a number of platforms months after her death, they said in a statement read by their lawyer, Terry Wilcox. I think you can ask questions. I think that that is always natural, and I think that that's good. However, harassment crosses the line, and in some cases, you can get arrested. The family urged the public to look at the facts, the evidence that has been heard during the inquest, and the conclusion reached by the coroner, and to ignore any amateur views and opinions and be mindful of the impact words bring. He added, the last few months have been extremely tough to process for our family. The emotional impact will stay long in our hearts, and whilst we will never forget the loss of our Nikki, we will forever remember her as a brilliant mom, partner, daughter, and sister that we all knew and loved so very much. But he said, the help and support we have received over these past few months has meant more than words can say. Ms. Bulley went missing on a dog walk in St. Michael's on Wyre, Lancashire, on January 27th, prompting a major search, which led to intense public interest and a social media frenzy of conspiracy theories. Her body was found in the River Wyre more than 3 weeks later on 19th of February. During the huge search after she vanished, police urged against people fueling damaging rumors, making their job harder, and attracting sightseers to the village where she disappeared. Lancashire police came under fire after revealing Ms. Bulley's struggles with alcohol and perimenopause. The coroner said one purpose of the inquest was to allay rumor and suspicion, and he would rely only on reliable sources and not explore the theories advanced by those who contribute to social media fora. Okay, so let's skip to this article that shares more about Day 2 inquest. Nicola had been looking forward to the future before her disappearance, her partner has told her Inquest. Paul Ansell said there had been concerns about her drinking and she had a blip over Christmas, but was back to herself by January. The inquest heard the family called 999 with worries about her welfare. On the call out, Dr. Teresa Levy said the 45-year-old appeared to be intoxicated but did not wish to engage. Dr. Levy said she worked alongside a mental health crisis service who were called on 10th of January to the mother of Chu's home address. The doctor confirmed to the coroner this was following Ms. Bulley telling her sister about not wishing to engage with her children and not wishing to be here. Describing the encounter as brief, Dr. Levy said in a review of the service provided to the Bulley family, it was found she had been in receipt of the crisis service even though she did not wholly meet the criteria. Mr. Ansell, giving evidence, said she had a blip over the Christmas period, but in January she was back to herself. He said, she had a good day the day before she went missing. Came home full of beans, excited with work, with the meeting she had and plans for the year. Dr. James Adderley, senior coroner for Lancashire, asked Mr. Ansell if Ms. Bulley had any suicidal thoughts. Mr. Ansell, Ms. Bulley's partner of 12 years, replied, there were a couple of throwaway comments during the blip period, but nothing that gave me any concern. He broke down in tears during his evidence and had to leave the room. Mr. Ansell said she was an incredible mom. Nikki was a quiet person who enjoyed the simple side of life. She was a very private person and kept herself to herself. Ms. Bulley's younger sister, Louise Cunningham, told Preston Coroner's Court she always had things under her control. She said her sister was very much a planner as a busy mom and juggled a career and family life. Ms. Cunningham also said there was a blip in her sister's mental state in the month before her death, but she was back on the HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy medication, in January, and back to work and back to the normal Nikki. Ms. Cunningham said her sister was drinking more heavily over that period. Low mood and anxiety. However, she added, she's never confided in me about any suicidal thoughts. Ms. Bulley's mother said everything was normal the day before her daughter went missing. Dorothy Bulley said she picked up her granddaughters from school on the 26th of January and looked after them that evening. She said, we sorted the girls out and everything was normal. She fought back tears after she described giving her daughter a kiss and cuddle goodbye. Ms. Bulley's father, Ernest, also cried as he talked about saying goodbye to his daughter. He said, she was a great daughter, sister, and mother. We couldn't ask for any more from her. Sophie Cartwright, KC, representing Ms. Bulley's family, said they believed her death was a tragic accident. Ms. Cartwright said, there has been much rumor and suspicion and speculation around Nikki's death, but the family are very clearly of the view and submit to you that the rumor and speculation is allayed completely when looking at all the evidence. She added the family believed Nikki's death would have occurred very shortly after she entered the water. Ms. Bulley's former GP told the hearing there was nothing in her medical records to suggest she wanted to self-harm. Dr. Rebecca Gray said she had been receiving treatments for low mood and anxiety since December 2018, later telling of headaches, fatigue, and lack of sleep. Ms. Bulley had been receiving HRT for the menopause since summer 2021, the inquest heard. She had revisited the surgery for symptoms including increased anxiety and headaches, and by late 2022 was reporting trouble with sleep. The GP said Ms. Bulley attended a walk-in center on 11th of January after a fall, complaining of increased drowsiness and vomiting. She was sent to accident and emergency where a CT scan came back normal. On Monday, the inquest heard from Home Office pathologist Dr. Allison Armour, who conducted the post-mortem examination on Ms. Bulley, said that she concluded she died of drowning and there was no evidence she had been harmed before she fell into the water. And as we also heard this, that she had not been drinking before her death. In his verdict, Dr. Adelaide said that there was no evidence to suggest Ms. Bulley intended to take her own life. He said, excluding a couple of comments over the Christmas period when she was acting out of character and were treated as throwaway comments, there was no indication of any intention to take her own life. Her behavior in the week before her death was back to normal. She had restarted her HRT therapy, stopped drinking sometime before, was making plans for playdates and spa days with several people. Dr. Adelaide said she was becoming increasingly successful at her new career as a mortgage broker, and her behavior during a parent's visit the night before she went missing was entirely normally. He added, the circumstances found after her death would also be extremely unusual for suicide, where Nikki left Willow, a dog to whom she was devoted and was described as a third child, alone on the riverbank. That's questionable because I've also heard reports of people who kill themselves in front of their children or try to kill themselves in front of their children. So yes, although I think that would be an extreme case, it does happen. He said Ms. Bulley would have had sufficient knowledge of cold water shock to realize as to how rapidly a death may occur, as otherwise she may be spotted and saved. Rebuild lives. For those, and one other thing, because it wasn't mentioned here, but it was mentioned in something else, that she and her sister, Nicola and her sister, were actually on that day, they were communicating about setting up a spa day for March. So it did seem like there were plans, at least as far as like the family, for them to do things together in the near future. For these and many other reasons, I discount a conclusion of suicide as there is no evidence to support this conclusion. There was also no natural disease that contributed to Nikki's death. The remaining conclusion is that of accidental death. And of course, on day one, they did say that there was no evidence of her being harmed or of any foul play. They don't think they used the actual word foul play. Oh, they said third-party involvement. Pathologists said that there was no evidence of her being harmed or third-party involvement. Day two, they're saying there was no natural disease, there was no suicide ideation, and so the remaining conclusion is that of accidental death. Speaking outside of Preston County Hall, Lancashire Constabulary's head of crime, Detective Pauline Stables, said, I want to start by saying that first and foremost, my thoughts today are with Nikki's family and loved ones. They have been through the most unimaginable ordeal over the last 6 months, and I can only hope that this inquest will help in some small way by answering some of the questions they had about what happened to Nikki on January 27th and will allow them to start the process of rebuilding their lives as best as they can. She said she hoped the coroner's conclusion would put an end to ill-informed speculation and conspiracy theories surrounding Miss Bulley's death. And let's go ahead and listen to the statement by the family.
Sadly, we feel the need to again raise and address the issue of social media. It's upsetting that we have continued to receive negative targeted messages and still widely inaccurate speculation being shared on numerous platforms. We encourage people to look at the facts, the evidence which is being heard during the inquest, and the conclusion reached by the coroner, to ignore any amateur views and opinions and be mindful of the impact the words bring.
One thing that the recap said yesterday is that the family was asking the coroner to rule this an accident. And I do find that interesting because I can see from their standpoint making sure that it's ruled an accident so that they get pressure off of them, because there has been a lot of negative publicity, conspiracies and such against the family, most specifically about Paul Ansel, which is Nicola's partner, versus giving the statement like I did now, which is that they believe that this was an accident. And I thought that was kind of interesting, right? In theory, the coroner should be independent and shouldn't have to be swayed either by a family's request for something to happen or even the investigators, right? The coroner should come up with their conclusion independently with information, just like what happened in the inquest, with the information that's brought in the hearing, and then the coroner makes the decision. So in this case, day one found that Nicola died of drowning and that there wasn't any evidence of third-party involvement. Day two found that it was an accident and there wasn't any evidence to support that she was either had suicidal ideation or that there were natural causes at play, right? Of course, that could always happen. Why did she slip and how did she slip? Those are still some questions that we have. How she managed to go down into the water, right? It was saying it's an accident. And being a strong swimmer, then it was all of these things happen at once. Cold water shock. And if she inhaled the water. Another thing that wasn't said here, but I had read yesterday, is that the screams that were alluded to on day 1 were not found to be related to Nicola's death, and that it was concluded that those weren't, that it was something else. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And also, no mention of Man in Black, which was brought up. Somebody had seen a Man in Black that they thought was interesting because they didn't know who that person was. Wasn't mentioned again. So I almost wonder if BBC was asked to reword or remove certain things that were not in alignment with the final conclusion. I don't know if they would have been asked or if they would have done it on their own, but those were some things, some standalone. So if you hadn't watched day 1, go ahead, you can click here, watch day 1, and see some of what was discussed and in the hearing on day 1. So overall, I think it was a very good assessment. She died of drowning. The evidence is there. There was no outside involvement, or at least no evidence of that, no evidence of suicidal ideation, and nothing that could be of natural causes. Now, could something have happened? Could she have had a heart attack, or could she have had there was some mention that she had a fall. Could she have gotten dizzy? Maybe there were natural causes that happened that caused her to fall. That's a possibility, but there isn't any evidence of it based on her. They said she did a CT scan and she came back normal. So maybe there were some things that happened in her body that caused her to slip and fall and therefore have the accident. Maybe even if there was some type of a incident where maybe she wasn't breathing well, then that could have supported why and how she was able to drown when she was known as a strong swimmer. So anyways, overall, such a tragic case, and Nicola and her family really tugged at the world's heartstrings. She was beautiful. She seemed like such a sweet, loving person, known as an amazing mom and family member, partner. And so, again, we'll just continue to hold Nicola in our thoughts and prayers, her family, her 2 little girls. And I'm sure speculation will still continue on the internets, but at least there is a strong conclusion here based on this inquest. Many other cases that still people think has foul play don't have this type of hearing or this type of inquest. I think that this was really good. I would have loved to have seen this like 3 months ago instead of so far out, because the further you are from the event, the more difficult it is for witness testimony. But that was the time set for this particular case. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, I'd appreciate if you hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I'd appreciate if you join the empowering family. Let's be the voice for the voiceless, missing persons, and others who need our help, need us to be the voice for them. With that, stay safe, stay thriving, always follow your intuition, and remember to keep it empowering. Bye for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications. Thank you.